Somewhere in a small French town, in a ditch next to an old-school lunchroom, there is a tin can packed with soil. Inside that tin can is a large ring of colour-coded labelled keys. They have been there since the 1990s. They will probably be there forever. And the two women who needed those keys, the ones who hit children with wooden spoons and made kids kneel on the floor as punishment, never ever got them back. This is a story about four brothers, a tiny school in a small town, two lunch ladies who made mealtime genuinely miserable, and one of the most satisfying accidental discoveries a group of children has ever made while doing bike tricks outside a lunchroom. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and let me tell you about the tin can that's been winning for 30 years. To understand this story, you need to understand the world it happened in. Small town, small school, 4 classrooms, 1 schoolyard with a handball court and a basketball court, and that was essentially it. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where the same families had been sending their kids to the same building for generations, and where the rhythms of daily life were slow and familiar and very, very hard to hide from. My brothers and I, 4 of us in total, attended this school in the 1990s. Our mother worked at the local vocational high school nearby, which meant we also lived in housing on those grounds, administered by the state along with both schools. Outside of teaching hours, we had the run of the place, wide open grounds, empty buildings, the specific freedom that comes from being kids in a place that turns quiet after 3 o'clock. It was, in most respects, a good childhood. The lunchroom was the exception. The lunchroom was managed by 3 people, a cook we almost never saw, and 2 older women who ran the front of the operation with an iron fist and a wooden spoon. I want to be precise about what I mean when I say they were awful, because I'm not talking about the normal strictness of adults who need to manage a room full of children. I'm talking about something harder than that. They hit kids with wooden spoons. When a spoon broke from the force of it hitting a table, or something else, they considered this unremarkable. If the room was too loud, a child might be made to kneel on the floor as an example to the others. The message was clear: you are here to eat quietly and cause no trouble, and the cost of failing at this is not a gentle reminder. One incident in particular has stayed with me. On days when our parents' schedule changed, we sometimes ate at home rather than the lunchroom. One of those days, the lunch ladies claimed to be 4 plates short of mashed potatoes. Not enough food for everyone. The 4 kids who went without a full meal were among the youngest in the room, smaller portions for smaller children, in a lunchroom managing 80 kids, because they hadn't been warned early enough about our absence. Who runs short on 4 plates for 80 children? People who wanted to make a point. We did not like them. The feeling was mutual. Our first revenge wasn't planned. In fact, it wasn't really ours at all. It belonged to one of my brothers and his friend, who simply decided one afternoon that they'd had enough of the lunchroom entirely. The calculation was simple. Pool their allowances, walk to the town centre, buy a baguette from the bakery and some sliced ham from the deli, and have their own picnic. No wooden spoons, no kneeling, no strategic food shortages. Just bread and ham and the freedom of eating without anyone hovering over them. When their absence was noticed, the questions started. The lunch ladies asked us where they were. Teachers were called. Everyone asked again. None of us said a word. Not me, not my other brother, not even my youngest brother, who was 6 years old at the time, and kept the secret with the composure of a seasoned diplomat. When my brother and his friend were eventually found and asked to explain themselves, they explained. Fully, honestly, and in detail, including the reasons why 2 children had decided that buying their own lunch and eating it outside was preferable to the official arrangement. What followed was the kind of small-town eruption that happens when something everyone has quietly accepted suddenly becomes public. The story spread through the school, then through the parents, then through the town. The mayor himself was drawn in, since the lunch ladies were municipal employees. Meetings were had, conversations were held that had needed to be held for a long time. We were children, and were kept out of the adult mechanics of it all. We never learned exactly what consequences followed for those women, but things were said that couldn't be unsaid, and a town that had been looking away from what happened in that lunchroom had been given a reason to look directly at it. It was not our proudest revenge, simply because we hadn't planned it. It happened around us more than because of us. The proudest one came later. We were in our final weeks at the school. My mother had transferred to another position, the housing situation was changing, and we all understood that this chapter was closing. The lunchroom, the lunch ladies, the wooden spoons, all of it would soon be behind us. It was also the first days of summer break, which meant empty school grounds and long afternoons with nothing required of us. The front of the lunchroom building had good flat pavement, ideal for bike tricks. We spent a lot of time there. That's how we noticed the keys. The lunch ladies had done their end-of-year cleaning the day before. A full deep clean, the kind you do when a building is going to sit empty for the summer, tidying, organising, locking everything up properly before walking away until September. Except they hadn't walked away with everything. On the door, still hanging where they'd left them, was a key ring. Not a single spare key or a backup copy. A large ring, the kind that accumulates over years of institutional use, loaded with keys that were colour-coded and labelled. Every key to every lock in that building, organised and identified, left hanging on the door when the last person walked out. We looked at it for a moment. We looked at each other. As young, responsible citizens, we assessed the situation carefully. The windows. We checked them. All shut. The doors. We verified them. Both locked. The keys, if left where they were, a security risk for an unoccupied building over the summer. Clearly, something needed to be done with them. We found a discarded tin can, the kind that turns up in any schoolyard if you look around for a moment. We placed the keys inside. We then packed the can tightly with soil and dirt, ensuring that nothing inside could shift or be lost, and we buried it in the ditch that ran alongside the lunchroom building, in a spot that we have remembered ever since, and that, to the best of our knowledge, no one has ever excavated. The keys were secure. They were not going anywhere. They have not gone anywhere in approximately 30 years. We told no one at the time. Not our parents, not our friends, not anyone who might have made a practical decision about retrieving the keys and returning them to the people who needed them. Our parents found out years later, after enough time had passed, that the statute of limitations on childhood mischief had clearly expired. What happened on the other end, the lunch ladies arriving in September, the discovery that the keys were gone, the process of replacing what must have been an expensive and complicated set of institutional keys, we were not there to see. We had moved on. The school, the lunchroom, the women who ran it were part of a chapter that had closed. But somewhere in that town, in a ditch next to a building that may or may not still be standing, a tin can full of keys is still exactly where we put it, packed in soil, carefully secured, lost to no one in particular, which is the best kind of lost. I've thought about this story a lot over the years, and what strikes me most is how perfectly the form fit the feeling. These were women who had spent years making children small, controlling what they ate, how they sat, how much noise they made, using physical intimidation on kids who had no recourse and no power. They ran their domain with complete authority and apparently very little accountability, and what undid them, in the end, was a baguette and a tin can. The first revenge came from one brother simply deciding that a bakery lunch was worth more than their control over him. The second came from 4 brothers and a discarded tin can, and the specific joy of children who have just realised that the people with all the power have, for once, made a mistake they cannot take back. They could replace the keys, probably did. But they couldn't take back the summer of wondering what had happened to them, couldn't undo the town meeting, couldn't retrieve whatever reputation they'd lost when a 6-year-old held a secret better than they'd held their authority. The tin can is still there, I'm almost certain of it. My youngest brother was 6 years old when he kept that secret from every adult who asked. 6 years old, and he didn't say a word. I think about that sometimes, about what it means that children who had been made to feel powerless in that lunchroom found in the end 2 moments where the power briefly shifted, one accidental, one deliberate, both perfect. The wooden spoon broke, the keys are in a ditch, some things have a way of working out. If this story made you smile, especially that detail about the tin can still sitting in a ditch somewhere in France, smash that like button and drop a comment. What's the most satisfying childhood revenge you were ever part of? I want every story. And if you want more tales of small people finding creative ways to even the score, subscribe. New story every week. See you in the next one.